The U.S. is keeping a closer eye on investment in China. A new move could keep billions of U.S. dollars away from the communist country. Rare earths, key elements for the production of weapons. China dominates the market, but the U.S. is taking steps to change that. Is China's zero COVID-19 policy really for the well-being of the people? A new report suggests otherwise. Russian-Chinese relations are at an all-time high and still improving. That's based on a recent phone call between the two leaders. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The U.S. may be keeping a closer eye on money flowing from U.S. companies into China, especially in some key sectors. A group of bipartisan lawmakers are pushing to screen American investment to China, a move that could potentially cut off billions of U.S. dollars pouring into the communist country. Proposed legislation would set up an oversight panel, allowing the federal government to review investment into China. If passed, American companies would need to disclose new investments in certain industries, including pharmaceuticals and semiconductors, also known as microchips. The proposal is part of a larger bill aimed at securing supply chains. Business groups in the Treasury Department are questioning the proposal, but House leaders are pushing for a vote before the July 4th recess. Washington is testing out a new step forward in reducing its reliance on China. The U.S. is building one of its very first domestic rare earth processing facilities. The U.S. Department of Defense signed a $120 million deal this week with Australia's Nynus Rare Earths. It's part of Washington's push to counter China's dominance in rare earth supply chains. Rare earth elements are vital to making certain military equipment. They're also used for components in electric vehicles, wind turbines, fiber optic cables, and consumer electronics. The Australian company will export rare earths mined and refined in Australia to the U.S. Then the elements will be processed for commercial use. There is concern that without these facilities, the U.S. could be cut off from critical minerals if relations with China deteriorate. The hope is that through this new deal, China would be bypassed entirely from the production cycle. But a new rare earths plant may be just the beginning as the U.S. strives to counter China's mineral market dominance. The House Armed Services Committee released a draft legislation last week addressing a mineral called antimony. The mineral is essential for producing military gear and weapons, from night vision goggles to bullets to nuclear arms. China produces more antimony than any other nation worldwide, and ranking second, Russia. The U.S. has no domestic mine for the mineral on home soil, though there is antimony underground in U.S. territory. The country used to get it from an Idaho gold mine, but that mine closed in 1997. As for the bill, the draft measure would task the manager of the National Defense Stockpile with providing, quote, a 5-year outlook of these minerals and current and future supply chain vulnerabilities. It would also mean a new Defense Department policy, recycling used batteries to reclaim, quote, precious metals, rare earth minerals, and elements of strategic importance into the supply chain or U.S. strategic reserves. The House Readiness Subcommittee under the Armed Services Committee is expected to approve the draft later this week, while the full committee will push the bill forward later this month as part of its defense authorization bill. House Republicans are proposing a new rule, one that would block big tech from doling out social media accounts to senior Chinese Communist Party officials. The rule would apply to all U.S.-owned social media platforms. That's according to a Fox News exclusive report. The measure is called China Social Media Reciprocity Act. The would-be ban comes built with one exception. That is, when the president can certify that the CCP department or individual in question has, quote, verifiably removed prohibitions on officials of the U.S. government from accessing, using, or participating in social media platforms in China. The president's power to waive the bill would span 2 years, while final say lies with Congress. Fox News cited a committee aide as saying that CCP agencies need to remove all curbs that block Chinese users from accessing U.S.-posted contents. That way, users in both countries will have equal access to each other's platforms. The rule would apply to all centralized organs of the Chinese Communist Party, as well as high-ranking officials from other Chinese state agencies. Before Elon Musk can launch a spaceship to Mars, he must comply with certain environmental requirements. Federal regulators announced Monday more than 75 actions he'll have to take, and the list ties into China. NTD's Faye Quarter has more.
Elon Musk's planned Starship launch in Boca Chica, Texas, is facing heavy regulation. Regulators are forcing him to take over 75 actions to decrease environmental impact before he can take off. Starship is SpaceX's most powerful launch vehicle, taller than a football field and wider than a bus. Musk wants to use it to send people to Mars after going through the 75 actions, which include contracting a qualified biologist to conduct pre, during, and post-construction monitoring of vegetation and birds, conducting evening lighting inspections between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. during sea turtle nesting season to make sure the lights don't affect the turtles, and operating an employee shuttle between Brownsville and the project site to reduce the number of vehicles on the road.
The degree to which it's been taken is so extreme, and there's really almost no way to justify it unless you're just really anti-impact, unless you really don't want to see things get built.
Brent Bennett is policy director of Life Powered at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Bennett says the permitting time it takes to get stuff like this done is damaging the economy. Other items include performing quarterly beach cleanups, providing improved, enhanced, or new access for fishing opportunities in the Gulf of Mexico, and participating in at least one public event every year that focuses on joint SpaceX, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and National Park Service mission outreach.
This is completely unnecessary, especially when one considers that SpaceX is the only thing keeping right now the United States in the space race with China. In China, they don't have to go through this sort of red tape.
Brandon Weichert is a space policy expert and the author of Winning Space: How America Remains a Superpower. Weichert believes the Biden administration is punishing Musk for being against it and having opposing views. The environmental review is only one part of the license application process. SpaceX will also have to go through FAA safety, risk, and financial responsibility requirements before Starship can take off for Mars. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
China and Russia expressed mutual support during a phone call on Wednesday. That's according to Chinese state media. Chinese leader Xi Jinping seems to be reasserting China's support for Russia's sovereignty and security. During the call, he said all parties should responsibly push for a proper settlement of the Ukraine crisis, and added that China is willing to work with the Russian side to promote the steady and long-term development of bilateral pragmatic cooperation. China has refused to criticize Russia's invasion of Ukraine, accusing NATO and the West of provoking Moscow into attacking the country. Weeks before the Russian attack, Putin and Xi met in Beijing in February. In that meeting, the two leaders pushed back against U.S. pressure and declared their opposition to any kind of NATO expansion. News from the Russian side says Beijing noted that it called the legitimacy of Moscow's actions to preserve its fundamental interests in the face of security challenges created by so-called external forces. While offering implied support for Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China has sought to appear neutral and avoid possible repercussions from supporting the Russian economy with international sanctions in play. Are China's strict zero COVID-19 measures aimed at cutting off the spread of the virus? This is what the communist regime says, but it looks like these measures may also serve another purpose. NTD's Don Ma reports.
Starting about 2 months ago, 3 banks in China's central Henan province froze a number of their customers' money, totaling over $178 million. The banks won't say why it's frozen or for how long, other than that they were upgrading internal systems. It's left companies unable to pay workers and individuals unable to access savings. And this week, hundreds of people who are affected plan to go to Henan province to protest. But according to Reuters, their plans were thwarted after authorities turned their health QR codes red. It takes away their ability to use public transport and the right to travel across the country. Frank Gaffney, head of Center for Security Policy, says he was doubtful from the very start that China's zero-COVID policy was purely for the sake of people's well-being.
I don't believe from the beginning, and certainly not today, is the zero COVID exclusively about public health, and probably not even substantially about public health.
Those affected suggested to Reuters that their health codes were changed to red not because they came into contact with COVID, but because they were planning a protest.
It's very much out of the playbook of the Chinese Communist Party to use whatever opportunity presents itself to strengthen the party at the expense of any possible opposition. Whether it's called a digital health passport, a vaccine passport, or something else, it is about the party being able to maximize its totalitarian hold on the people of China and manipulating them, bending them to their will.
Mr. Chen, a customer of one of the banks, says it feels like they are putting digital handcuffs on us. Another customer, factory owner Mr. Chang, cannot access his nearly $1 million deposit. In his words, not being able to withdraw money has a huge impact on the operation of our factory, including procurement and workers' wages. Don Ma, NTD News.
Similar health code changes have also appeared in the east central city of Zhengzhou. There, the construction of a residential building has been suspended for 8 months. Owing to the delay, homebuyers waiting to move in reported the case. That's when things turned south. One of those leading the complaint found his health code turned red just 1 day before his appointment with the local Bureau of Complaints. He brought the problem to his community committee, and in exchange for getting his code turned green, he was required to sign a guarantee. First, that he would avoid areas with high risk of infection, and second, that he won't attempt to defend his rights. That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here, after being demonetized for more than a year. Here's what to look out for in our second half. A new target for China's censorship machine. The clip in question, a wedding video from a southwestern province. Its cameraman was summoned by police shortly after sharing it online. We look at why. Leading Congress members from America's southern backyard are denouncing Beijing's infiltration. They discuss trade and key infrastructure as some of the paths the Chinese Communist Party used to make its way into Latin America. The full episode is available on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.
Every once in a while, something comes along so masterful, it leaves you in awe. So inspiring, it changes your life. So beautiful, you wish it would never end. When that happens, it's something not to be missed. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
The performance was enchanting.
I feel better about the world. I feel uplifted.
It touches you. It really does.
The expertise of the dancers was really, really strong.
To know that it was live music was really fantastic.
We didn't want to miss this.
Make sure you see it.
Have to come. Life-changing.